Yo, what is up? What's poppin'? You know it ain't no stopping. It is your boy, the International Sensei, and of course, welcome to the Enter the Dojo podcast, your source for every damn thing. I focus on positivity, of course, fighting games, martial arts, and some other stuff. I'll sprinkle some random topics in there. But we are going back to the FGC side today. As we say, keep it right, keep it tight, and above all, please talk to me nice. Now, one of the things that has been prevalent for a while in the FGC is the concept of kind of doing away with what made the FGC what it was, which is like the grassroots tournaments and stuff like that. Now, obviously, and this is just like a side note before I get into this topic, obviously I have not been as active in the FGC because of like COVID and stuff. We really haven't been a bunch of tournaments. Also, I'm pursuing stunts, I'm pursuing voice acting. So a lot of my time and effort is going towards that. And this is just to keep it a buck with people that are interested in the FGC and making a quote unquote career out of it. It's really not a viable career path. I'm not gonna hold you. I mean, there are a very small percentage of people that make money in this industry, and that's just stating a fact. If you're gonna do FGC, best advice I could give you: build a stream. Like, focus on stream a lot, go to events when you can, obviously, but stream as much as you can. Stream other games. Shout out to my homie Trey Pound. He streams a lot of different games, not just fighters. He built his name in FGC and then kind of branched out, but that's my little touch thing on that. It is a wonderful thing, but I'm just being honest with you. If you think you're going to come in here making a massive gross of money, it's not gonna happen for most of you. It's just a small portion of the community that really strikes it big. But back to the topic of back to the topic of banishing locals and basically having all invitationals and stuff like that. My problem, I don't really have a huge problem with this because there's been like a couple schools of thought on the topic. So the first school of thought, which is like I've heard from like guys like Leffen, is up the entry fee so that the pot bonus could be bigger, which I'm not gonna lie is kind of like a jerk move, because I'm like, look, your fans are coming to these tournaments. A good amount of them are entering knowing that they're gonna probably lose to you or knowing that they're not going to win. I mean, there are a lot of people that enter tournaments that they think they're like amazing, and they freaking suck, and they continue to go on to, and they'll spend these grands of dollars, which is perfectly fine. I mean, FGC in esports in general, I mean, it's not a contact sport, so like you're not at any real health risk for throwing all this, like for like entering these tournaments just kind of willy-nilly. I mean, it's not boxing, it's not judo, it's not kickboxing, it's not jiu-jitsu. Like, you don't have the risk of getting seriously harmed unless someone's just like an absolute idiot. And like, I mean, there have been some fights in the FGC or whatever, but most people in FGC are not gonna attack you over a video game. Anyway, one of the things that happens with that kind of stuff is like you kind of turn off a lot of people, because like what will happen is, like, let's say the venue fee for the tournament is $60. Okay, so that's $60 that I have to get charged to come into your tournament just to be there, as a competitor. Now, spectator fees is a different story, but that's not what we're talking about. So venue fee is about $65. I mean, I don't know how it will be when stuff comes back and if stuff comes back, but it's $60. So then you have that, which is $60. Then you have the $10 game entry fee, and now you're allowed to enter as many games as you want. So if I go to a tournament for gaming and I play, let's say, 4 or 5 games, I pay that $40, and then I pay that $60 for the venue fee. I only spent $100. So now let's double that entry fee for the games and make it $20, just because top players want to get paid more. Now I'm only able to enter 2 games, or if my money's kind of tight, I'm only able to enter 1 game when I would have normally been able to enter 2 games, type of thing. What I feel like that's going to do is that's just going to limit how many people are willing to come. Because, I mean, if you tell me it's $10, I'm like, all right. I mean, I get guaranteed 2 matches, whatever. If you tell me it's $20, like you're gonna lose I think you're gonna lose a considerable amount of people. I mean, just for me, because I know I'm not that good at fighters, I probably wouldn't enter. I mean, you're still gonna get the numbers, but it's kind of a selfish move because like I think a lot of top players don't understand that these venues need to eat too. So they're making the tournament entry fees cheaper so that more people are able to attend. If you make the tournament entry fee more expensive, then you're less likely to get people in the tournament. Your bottom line more than likely is going to be increased, or in most cases unaffected, maybe stay about the same, but their bottom line is going to get freaking screwed. And I feel like a lot of people don't understand the concept of money in this community, and that's not a dig, but that's just a fact. Like, I didn't at first when I was coming through the FGC. Like, I went to tournaments and I used to complain about how certain tournaments were ran. I'm not going to name the names of the tournament, but if you're in the FGC, you know. And how certain tournaments were ran, and then one of my homeboys broke it down to me and broke it down like how really hard it is to run a great tournament and how much money goes into running a tournament, especially depending on where you live at, like whatever state you live at. If you live in Cali or something like that, it can be extremely expensive. So you really have to manage how much you charge and things like that for the event so that you can get the maximum yield of people attending as possible. But for that, I mean, like, just for the people who want those higher venue fees, excuse me, not the higher venue fees, but the higher tournament entry fees, just keep in mind, like, look, if we get back to locals, these guys got to keep the lights on, you know what I mean? Like, they're, in a lot of cases, some of them are taking losses on these events. So just be considerate. Like, look, understand that they need to make money too. Like, it's not all about you. And if they didn't have the tournaments, then you wouldn't be relevant. And that's just keeping it 100. Like, no one would give a flying fuck about most of these players if we don't have the tournaments that we have. We don't have the CEOs and we don't have the KITs for you to build your name and build your platform on with all these people, especially before the freaking digital era hit. I mean, for like the online era hit for most games, like they wouldn't care. So it's like you gotta kind of humble yourself and look, understand. Okay, I can make about this much, and then I'm gonna have to stream or freaking get in the game with some backing. I mean, there's certain games that don't have backing. Like I know the Smash titles really don't have backing like that. NRS does, Street Fighter kind of does, Tekken does, for the most part. But Smash is like a dope game, but I know the scenes prize pots aren't what they really should be. But I don't think it's fair to charge players that might not necessarily be that good, but just want to have the chance to compete with some of their favorite players, and you're basically penalizing them for wanting to compete with you because you want a little extra money. That's not right. But it is what it is. Now going from that to doing away with locals completely and only having invitationals, and I've heard this from a couple players. I know like PL a couple weeks ago or recently got blown up about it, which I mean, look, I can't get upset about it. Like, I mean, I'm not a player. I'm a caster. When I do cast, like, I really don't care. I can see both schools of thought. So here's my thing. You can have the invitationals, but you got to understand that these orgs have to make some kind of money. So, like, I'm guessing you're going to have to sell tickets. And you're going to have to sell enough tickets or enough, like, online, whatever. You're going to have to have enough either online views or online ads or something to make up for that revenue loss. And then you also kind of screw all the people that were the foundation of FGC and that brought it up again. So it still goes back to that charging extra tournament fees things. Like, you're not thinking about the big picture. You're thinking about your pockets kind of thing. But I can understand why, like, someone would prefer a invitational. Like, if you're a strong player, if you're like a Perfect Legend, or if you're like a Sonic Fox or a Rewind, you know you're more than likely going to be close to the top 10, top 16. You don't want to have to play a bunch of unnecessary matches, because when you're in a tournament, let's say you play I don't know, let's just say you play 15 matches. More than likely, a good 4 or like sometimes 5 or 6 of those matches are matches that don't mean a damn thing. Like you're playing someone that really isn't that good. It's just kind of like a place filler, and they just kind of entered the tournament just on a whim because they wanted to see how they would do. Now, I personally don't mind that. Again, I mean, this is a game. This is a sport of fun. Like, it's not really. I don't know. It's like it's not really warranted to want to do all invitationals because you kind of take away a lot of the I guess a lot of the community aspect from it. But I think there should be more invitationals. So I would say how you should do it would maybe be like let's say have like a bunch of local qualifiers. So at your local you have like kind of structure it like amateur sports. So kind of structure it like the taekwondos and the wrestlings of the world. Have your state championship. So have state to state, have your state championship, and then that qualifies you for nationals or whatever in your particular game, or like the top 3 whatever gets qualified for nationals in their particular game, and then that particular game, then that game has a nationals for all of those players from all of those regions, those top 3s. Everyone fights it out, or not even state to state, but region to region, because we can break it up into regions, because state to state would be long as hell, but region to region or whatever, so that we can break it up into however many regions, and then have like the 3 best players from this region. So have it from the northeast, from the southeast, from the west coast, from the Midwest, whatever, and then have all those 3 people duke it out, and then maybe have like a top 3 from that get qualified for an invitational along with other pro players that are already established or something. Like, but there needs to be a bridge, because what happens when you completely do away with completely do away with like the grassroots tournaments and like the local tournaments, you kind of like eliminate a big portion of like that discovery period. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot harder for a person that wants to get on that stage and wants to break through if you don't have some form of like environment for them to grow in. You know what I mean? Because like the way it's sounding is like, okay, no more locals, no more regionals, no more major tournaments, only invitationals. And you just gotta have something that you gotta have that buffer in between. You know what I mean? Just like when you have like even like in like MMA, for example. So there's some people that go through, what was it, Strike Force? I think it was like Strike Force was like probably like almost like a feeder program for like the UFC for a while, where like a lot of good fighters would go to Strike Force, get the title at Strike Force, and then get pushed to the UFC or something like that. You need that lower level where young talent can kind of build themselves. So I would say let's not completely do away with the locals. Let's build like a series, which I think has already kind of been done with like the Red Bull was it Proving Grounds, I think it was, that a lot of states did, which was really helpful. I think like maybe getting like I'll say 3 to 5 players from that every year that aren't necessarily professional. Maybe like they don't have sponsors, but they're really, really strong. Get them there, and then add those players to a big invitational, and then see how they do, type of thing. As opposed to just like saying, okay, well, if I'm established, and we're gonna pick the top 16, we're gonna pick 16 players, and it's gonna be the same 16 freaking players every time, and we continue to do what FGC does sometimes, which is alienate themselves, which is a big problem, which will lose fans, which will damage the community, especially with all this COVID stuff happening and the lack of events that have been going on. You really can't afford to have that happen to your community. So I would just say have more invitationals, but be able to have those grassroots tournaments in which local talent can come and shine, and then qualify for those big invitationals. So have, like, let's say you have an invitational with 16 spots, but only 10 of them are guaranteed.